Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Layers and Keyframe podcast. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Jigga, if that's what you want me to call you, or Joboson, or
I mean,
what's your preferred name? Okay,
anyone is fine. Most people call me Jigga though, but
okay. So,
I think Chisa is also nice. Yeah.
so I'm joined with Jigga. Do you want to give a quick introduction for those people who don't know you?
Yeah. Why not? My name is Chisa Joboson. Jigga on Twitter, most on the design streets. Yes. Um, Chisa for short because my name is a bit long and
The
people kind of,
Yoruba
you know,
antics.
yeah. Although I'm not Yoruba though. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, oops.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
are
yeah.
you Igbo?
I'm Igbo, yes.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Although I don't look like that, I guess that's why most
I
people
thought you
would.
were Yoruba.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I'm a brand and type designer. Recently started doing type design anyways, but yeah, and I design for unique brands and people. I've been designing for 6 years, going to seven, I guess. Um, yeah, and I I love music. I'm a community driven person. I love African culture and people and the diversity. What else? What else? Yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Speaking on, so how did you first get into designing? Did you have like formal education on design, or was it just like a passion which ended up like making its way to be a proper career?
Yeah, I would say I don't think so. I didn't study design. First of all, I didn't study anything art related. I although I was actually very artistic, very creative growing up, but um, having to grow up in a typical African home, there's always this expectation that you grow up to be an engineer or a doctor or you take on some profession that would earn you money, and art wasn't really promising at that point in time. Although like I would draw and I was pretty very much good in art, fine art. But when it came to getting into university, um, it was always it was the question of like, what would you study? And I was in my high school. I did science, and well, I ended up doing civil engineering or studying civil engineering in the university. So I kind of found design in my fourth year, close to my final year. Um, yeah, the story is a quite a long one, but ideally, I did not study, so it was no formal education of any sort. It was just me stumbling on design, and I kind of liked what I was doing, and having to self teach myself or self teach, as the case may be. Um, that was just how design started for me.
So, what would you say would be like the best way to like self-learn? Because from majority of the people we've had on the podcast, it's almost the same thing, but everybody's experience like of learning is always a bit different. So, I want to hear your own as well.
Oh, it's a very long journey. That's the first thing I would say, and I'm still on that journey too. Because ideally, and sometimes I wish there was a formal education to design, especially in our region. I think it would have made learning design very easy. If there were structures in place. Um, but in the absence of that, I feel like you just need to, now the world is a global village in a way where you get to interact with a lot of people. You have certain interests and you can align with people or you can find resources on certain things. You just need to really dig deep. And I think that is the best way to learn if you're doing it on your own. Um, when I started, it wasn't I didn't really understand the essence of having to get information online. I perhaps I wasn't really tech savvy at that point in time, but
Oh,
I think now it's better because you want to learn this and you can just Google up something and it comes out. So again, it's going to be a long journey because there's a lot of trying, failing, perhaps not even liking what you're finding, trying to change to something else. But it's one where you just have to enjoy it as it goes. Trust the process, as they say.
that is the best motto. Even me,
Yeah.
so every time someone asks me about design, like I always also just say trust the process. But
But it's always like, I feel like trust the process is a very vague way to escape like stating the exact specifics of how to do something, especially
no, because
creatively.
3/4 of the time, if you end up making something good, it's probably a mistake. So like that's what I say, because like every time, like me example, when I do a project at the start, it
Yeah.
looks so terrible. Like I'm even wondering if like I'm a fraud, just the way that is so like it's so bad looking. But at the end of the
Mm.
day, like it's just because it's looking raw. You have to trust the process, keep going. Then at the end, it looks good. But even speaking on the region, what's some experiences like top like the best of experiences and the worst experiences being a designer in Nigeria?
Mm. So I'll begin with the worst. I think the worst is actually being undervalued. Um, yes, undervalued, especially
Definitely.
on the global scale. I feel like, especially not just Nigerian designers, but African designers at large, Africa at large. I feel like there's something special we bring to the table of design, which we are yet, the world is yet to like recognize, and it's always difficult because you notice design is a global language. You're all solving a global problem, you know,
Yeah.
but it feels like there's a bit of seclusion, and I don't want to be political about it, but it's just the reality of things where you think, design is for everyone, but it's like you you barely have that door open for you. You have to constantly kick that door open before you are being seen or being heard or before you can even walk in, you know. So it's under undervalue, under representation. I also think another worst experience is underpayment, both
Yeah, as
from
for that
within
one
and
is
outside.
definitely a problem.
Actually, we did.
Yeah, within it's like you have to fight just to get money soft.
Yeah.
Mm,
So for that case, I think the Africa is not at that point where they see the value design brings, you know. And I don't know how we can solve that problem. Perhaps design education, you know. I don't know, but it's always this thing like design feels like an afterthought for most brands, most people. Like you know, as far as people are buying your product, like that's
yeah,
but
you'll find something.
yeah. And why should design cost that much? There's always
Yeah,
a lot of questions towards that, but yeah, those are what's and you know how it's difficult to get paid as your peers overseas. If you're being reached
yeah,
out to, it's like, oh, we're looking for a cheap designer. We don't want to pay everyone in this region. Let's think about Africa,
yeah.
and
You know the
everyone
funniest
dives in
part
like,
as well. The
yeah,
funniest part as well is that even like they don't like we don't really value design, but at the same time, the same companies that they want to be like, the main reason why they are so like the main reason that they're on the next level is because of said branding. There is the
bro.
reason why you go to KFC more than you go
Yeah,
to like
yeah,
Chicken Man, because it's
yeah.
KFC. Like you see, you know everything better than why you go to like Auntie MFA's Watch or something.
Yeah. I feel a lot of people do not really know this, and I think that's where design education kind of like helps. And I mean, it's a lot, but hopefully we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, those are not so good experiences I have as a designer in Nigeria and Africa. If I'll talk about great experiences, I think is the fact that I can tap into culture. I feel like we have so much diversity, which is quite untapped, and it kind of makes us stand out. Um, I feel like we're excellent people, it's just a matter of like the world coming to recognize that. Um, but yeah, I think, just being African is everything good when it comes to like being a creative, so yeah.
A lot of places to take inspiration from. I mean, everywhere in
Yeah.
the world there's a lot, but like there's more like
Yeah,
untapped
yeah.
potential. You could
I,
say
I look
more.
if you like the Western world have used everything in their arsenal,
It's hard to
grids,
find more.
gradients, um, um, whatnot, like colors, that kind of geometric typography, everything has been exhausted. So, so
Looking
it's
for
like, where do
something
you go
more.
to now? And I feel like that is where we kind of have that advantage. Hopefully, like the world sees it, but yeah, that's it.
I mean, it takes time, but
Yeah.
there's one big achievement I know you have that's like is definitely how do I say? It's definitely like gone worldwide. Basically, like you see it around and people tell you. So if you wouldn't mind telling us about the story of your font, the Ojuju font, if I'm saying it right. So if you
Yeah,
wouldn't mind
yeah, you
saying
got
like
it right.
how like what's the story behind it, from like how do you how do you start, how like how was the process making it, how do you get Google Fonts to pair up with it, and like what's it like when you see like somebody in Russia and on their
Yeah.
restaurant sign they're using your font? That must be really cool.
Yeah, it's been a wild and also amazing experiences. Ojuju dropped. Funny enough, I think it's I now that you even called it its name, I think I did good with the name because
Definitely.
I had a much longer name and I felt like it would have people biting their tongues.
What name?
So initially I wanted to name it Egugu. So Egugu is yes.
Egugu.
Yeah, obviously that is a problem. But uh, Egugu is a type of masquerade, a Yoruba masquerade. So I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, but I after much deliberation, I was like, no, Ojuju is way better.
Yeah, better
You
for the
cannot
international
not
audience.
pronounce it well. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you
So
mean. But what's the
yeah.
story about like the making it and
So
publishing?
yeah. I mean, sometime last year. Yeah. I mean, I'd been just doing brand design. Obviously, I started with like graphic design. Then after a while, I moved to logo design. Then I started to see the bigger picture of just not just doing logo, and I was like, okay, I could dive into brand analytics design, and I did that for a while. And as I did that, I kind of had African clients come to me and like, oh, they need, an identity, they need branding and whatnot. And it was always different with this client because I would end up, if most times we would end up doing a logo type, and or a word mark. And in doing that, it would mean we had to take certain type faces or fonts and or even create a new one in a way you would kind of reflect a bit of like African to it, you know,
Yeah.
so that you can see it and be like, okay, yeah, this is an African brand. Um, and I enjoyed doing those kind of projects, but I started to notice that in those typefaces that would pick or I would like to use, I explain my favorite typefaces. There are certain, you know, would I say writing scripts, not script per se, but say you have like tree,
Yeah.
there are certain symbols you could want to write digitally, but you won't find them in say Inter,
Yeah. Like
or
the
yeah, or Montserrat. And it kind of made me worry because, and I'll give a typical example, which I always found to be a problem. I want to write the Naira symbol, and and it's either you just have the N and you now like find a way to give it strokes, two strokes, you know,
mm,
and it was always like difficult. Like, why can't I just have that? And why do I have to create? So I started to think about a possibility where I could create a typeface, a font that would accommodate those. And initially, I was just thinking about Nigerian languages, given I wasn't so pro Africa because I didn't know like what Ghana languages were like, or um, say what they spoke in Zimbabwe or whatnot. But
yeah.
I was like, maybe I should do that for my, and it was just an exploration at that point. So I started exploring. And one thing I also wanted to reflect was those languages, or sorry, those typefaces I would create having a bit of African elements to them, or like you see it and you feel like, oh, this strikes home, that kind of thing. Which was like, how would I do it? So Oju was one of those explorations I had at that point in time. I wanted to also not so attach myself to it, so I had Udi, as a foundry, like a
Ooh.
yes, a brainchild to house those explorations, as the case may be. And at that time I started to like drop different, there was one I am yet to go back to, which is um Gongo Grotex. And it
Hmm.
was about gongs, African gongs. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was me trying to create like letters in the form of those
So is it
gongs.
like those emoji fonts where like each letter is its own basically each letter is basically its own emoji?
Yeah, something in that manner, but now it's like as a gong. So it's like shaped as the gong I referenced where there are two sets, joined together but triangular. Um, yeah, but there were a lot of explorations I had, and I think during that phase, I had a friend reach out to me. I don't know if you know Simon Cowrie. He's in the Ghanaian designer.
Not
And
heard of
he's
him.
very pro African design. So he reached out to me. I was like, hey, Google fonts, they're trying to get African designers to, create typeface for Africa, to support some African, or most African languages. And would I
Mm.
be interested? I was like, yeah, I would be. And this was a conversation. Um, let's say second quarter of the year 2023. So I did send in every detail he asked of me, and that was it. It was radio silence. I was like, oh, okay. So that moment, they're like, perhaps they've used another person or they've gone to. So I didn't get any feedback till like September ish, where Dave Crossland, who like handles everything open source on at
Google.
Google Fonts, he would reach out and like, hey, Simon recommended me, and would you be open to da da da? I was like, yeah. And so we had conversations, like, and they're like, okay, what would you like to say design and make open source? And I mean, I just thought about it again. I think at that point I was having nightmares of masquerades.
Uh,
because because you know one thing I that is very strong when it comes to my memories of my childhood um is the fact that when I would go back again, I'm Igbo, but I live in the western part of Nigeria, which
oh,
is
okay.
Lagos. So I would usually travel home. It's always that kind of thing. So most of us Igbos during a festive season will travel home, but I didn't usually go home so often. But times I would go home, be it for a burial or a certain celebration. There's this thing that was we always prominent where I would like see masquerades, dancing on the streets. Maybe they're doing one festival, and it
Mm,
was like you see this. Obviously, it's a human being in those, costumes, and
clothing, yeah.
yeah, and you see how they move, and you're like, wow, this is so eccentric. It's also
Yes.
fascinating. At some point,
Sometimes it's
I don't know, the
very
masquerades in
scary.
our yeah, yeah. I don't know. The masquerade in our side, they do chase people too. At some point.
I think I've seen some of that. So I've seen
Yeah.
some of those ones before. Those ones,
Yeah.
I sometimes like I think to myself like if they chase me, okay, I'll just fight back, cause like it's too scary at a point.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, like you're not meant to fight back. You're meant to run
I
because
know, but
they attach a spiritual thing to each masquerade. Like so, you're not meant to
yeah,
offend the gods. I mean, but that kind of was like very I don't know. Most time I just like randomly think about masquerades, And so at that point they reached out to me. I was like, yeah, I think I could do a typeface on masquerades. That would be much nice to explore. And so I did a couple of drafts and send the proposal, and they were like, yeah, it would be nice to have this. Initially I wanted to just do just one weight, which is the boldest. But they're like, oh, we can make it like variable. I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, let's do it. And yeah, the rest is history.
yeah. Now you
Yeah,
have basically the African font on
yeah.
Google
I mean,
Fonts. Now you
yeah.
see, now it's not even African anymore, it's international. I remember
I
I remember
mean,
I saw a tweet from someone one time. They were in I think it was one of the Eastern European countries. I forgot which one, and they were selling with your phone. That looked
yeah,
really cool. I'll not lie. But even
yeah.
on you mentioned something about Udi Foundry, like about how you use it to like house your ideas for just like cultural fonts and things. Like, what's that about?
So Odu is so I when I was thinking about exploring typeface or type design, I wasn't really certain that it was something I wanted to do because I mean it's a very new industry, and especially in this region, and there's always a question like it's a difficult industry to break into. It's always a question like, are you sure that even if you're creating typefaces, you would make money from it? If you're going to sell those typefaces, how many would you even sell? So I didn't want to make that my whole identity. I wanted to, I started off doing branding, or I'm doing branding. I was like, yeah, that could maybe type design could just be an add-on to my skill of like branding. So um, I was not like, okay, perhaps maybe I could have a certain independent type foundry, and I was like, what can I call it? And Udi came to mind. Udi is an Igbo word that kind of means type of, like group of, you know.
Oh,
So
okay.
for me, it's a group of typefaces by me. Um, and
That's
that was just the idea behind it. So yeah.
Oh, since then, have you gotten any like requests for like commissions from brands looking for like their own custom typeface? Have you got any of those?
Yeah, I have. But then again, most people don't know how expensive type design is. And so when
Oh,
and I come with the, oh, this is how much it cost. I'm like, okay, I think we would use Google Fonts.
once again, the respect is not there. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
only problem. But
yeah, yeah.
even what's it called? Based on like these things, like if you were to say like your biggest achievement besides from Ojuju as a designer, like what do you think it would be?
Hmm. I think my biggest achievement is yet to come.
Okay, what about so far? Like what are you up to right now? Like that you could even say is a good achievement.
So, I mean, if anything, I think I'm kind of proud of having founded a brand design community. I don't know if that counts for anything. I I mean, it's a long way to actually get into our destination, with regards like how the community should be. But I'm kind of happy about that because I know having to start out design, and it's something I kind of felt if I had an a knowledge of earlier, I maybe my journey would have been way smoother. Because I feel like even in having to join or say start a career, community helps a long way. You know, it
Yeah,
goes a long way to make you stand on your feet when you have like people around you who you could, like minds, who you could talk to. You have problems, and it's me starting out. I kind of figured out a lot of things on my own. It was when I started to interact with designers that I started to recognize, like, or know certain things I didn't know. It was like I was basking
yeah.
in ignorance.
The connection when they teach you new skills, that's probably like
Yeah,
the best feeling.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a
So
like a life hack.
yeah, it's like, bro, it's a life hack. So so I started to join communities much later, and so I kind of see the problem which a lot of us in the design industry in the African space can face, one where there are not much like to look back on when you are trying to like get inspiration, because either a problem of documentation, or just, let's say, documentation at this moment.
Mm,
There's also a thing of like, okay, communities, are there enough communities that would really help you upskill, you know? Um, and so that was really lacking, especially in the brand design space, you know.
yeah,
Um, and it was also a case where then, it was post COVID, everyone was on Twitter Spaces,
yeah, talking and everything.
yeah,
I,
conversations were being had, um, especially in the design space. But it wasn't the right conversations I would have expected it to be. And in a way, in a way, it was all UI UX. I mean, no
yeah, I mean,
disrespect.
I can even say that like I said this on the previous podcast, so I was a bit
Yeah.
reluctant to say, but my biggest problem over here, like the biggest problem that I noticed is the
Mm-hmm.
lack of the theory. There's such
Yes.
like little understanding of like what's happening. Like
Yeah.
you can't. There's not much. There's nobody's innovating because nobody like
Mm-hmm.
they just know what to do, but they don't
Yeah.
know like how it does.
Yeah.
That's probably in my so far, like that's more like the one thing that I really want to like just teach people. So
Mm-hmm.
even right now, I'm thinking of maybe starting up a tutorial series. My only problem right now is that
That'll be nice.
I'm in my exam
Time.
year, so
Yeah, yeah,
it
time,
depends.
time.
I have my exams in from like January to June. So before
Yeah,
then, I need to just like think of some good content to put out because
yeah.
like it's one of those things where like once you notice it, it's so like you just keep noticing it again and
It's
again.
very
Like
evident. Like it
yeah,
becomes glaring.
every time I see someone make something, I'm like, okay, so why did you do this? And
And
they tell me, oh, like I
mm-hmm,
just thought it looked nice, or like, oh,
mm-hmm,
they said that I should do it like this, so I just did it.
mm-hmm.
It's like it is no, it's just like oh, based on it's not it's never like independent like it's never like independently like thought
Yeah,
about. It's more just like different opinions from everywhere and then just put
yeah,
it in for
yeah.
one. But your design
Very true.
community, is it is Brand Street, right?
Yeah, it's Branch Street.
Yeah. What's how like how has it been going recently? Like have you been doing anything with it?
Yeah, so I mean, truth be told, as much as it's beautiful to want to help other people, we are still facing trying to help ourselves make it, you know. And so it's like you running two jobs at the same time. You know, you're running a
Mm.
community, you're also running a business like on your own, like trying to get clients and whatnot. But so far it's been quite exciting. It's been I mean, recently we're trying to have a brand design workshop very soon, sometime in October.
Oh,
And that's what
actually,
we're planning for. Yeah.
now that I'm saying this, actually, Layers and Keyframes, we are actually planning on having like a group of workshops. I don't know if you know Batch.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
From
Yes.
yeah
Yes. Yes.
from
Yes. I
Roche.
know Batch.
We literally had him last month, but what
Mm.
we'd also like to do is like something similar where we get three artists to talk about something. So
Yeah.
we're looking to do it at least one this year. So
Yeah.
even if you want to do something on brand, then just my messages are open. That's already one. We
All
have to
right.
get two
Cool.
more. Just a, like something to teach the community. We'll record
Yeah.
it as
Yeah.
well.
Because
That's
I feel like as much as we're like you said, we kind of know things, but at the same time, it feels like we don't know much, and there's a need to kind of bridge that gap where if we are going to demand or make the world see the excellence in us, we need to put ourselves to a certain level, where people look at us and see excellence. It's not like, oh, these guys can just do the work, you know and
yeah.
we keep moving. So yeah, that's something we've been trying to do. But overall, it's been a beautiful journey. There's a lot of, like, we hope that the future of brand design in Africa would you know change in the next 5 years. That
Yeah, I have to
uh,
increase the
yeah,
floor. That's
yeah, like,
the main goal. But
who
do you
knows?
like at the so do you so is your job like just like freelancing or do you have another job and then you do your design on the side? Because I know that it's quite hard like to
Yeah.
get like easy like stable money unless you're doing like maybe like a remote studio job. So is that like what you're doing?
So I started off design, um, freelancing, then trying to work for companies at some point in time. Um, and after a while, I did full time sometime in 2019, and I also did that in 2021, and then stopped in 2022. And then I told myself, like, man, I don't know, there's a certain money I need. And I guess full time is not going to give me. I was like, okay, perhaps I should try full time and see if it works. And so I've
Review.
been putting every energy into full time. And I mean,
Oh,
so
okay.
far, God has been gracious, I guess. So
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's always a like a tough decision because I would
Very
say
tough.
that when it comes to like jobs,
Yeah.
um, it's even like going alongside like school design school and things
Mm-hmm.
like if it depends, like it really depends because me personally, all I'll say is that I would genuinely, if with the like, since if you already have the knowledge of what you're doing in like your course, for example, it
Yeah.
would be better to go to a worse school where like you can meet so many people who like even not even in your course, but just people around you who you know or like internships or whatever. Me personally, I would prefer that than to go to like the best design teaching, but like it's only just learning. It's like a school
Mm-hmm.
because after
Do you guys have that over
university,
there?
over here it's like basically the same as Nigeria. Like there's nothing really. So it's usually you
I
have
feel
to go
we're
abroad.
one country, but it's also interesting that we're kind of demarcated by two
It's
countries, or is
it's
it
the
if it's three? I
same.
don't know.
Everything about the countries, our countries is the same. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm even half Nigerian, so I
Oh,
come between
really?
the countries sometimes. Yeah, half
Nice.
Yoruba.
That's lovely.
But then, yeah, there's basically no difference. But
Yeah.
one thing that I've been seeing really nice is there's some recently there's been some new schools which like
Okay.
to be only design and creative arts like not recently but like a few years ago. I think the biggest one in West Africa opened to in yeah the biggest one in West Africa open. So it's like an actual they do architecture, fashion,
Wow. Wow.
design, textile. This I went to visit there sometime, which is really like it was actually really good. Then every week they get like someone to come and like talk to them about it. That's is
That's great. That's
yeah. When I went, there was a lot of students coming in from Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire,
wow.
those ones. So like at least it's like a good direction.
Yeah. Good
But
location.
definitely the best way is still Japan.
I mean, I also think maybe because at some point we would really need to. I think it's sad on various levels because these are things you expect the government to invest in, making sure there are structures and things put in place for such learning, I mean, why don't we have a university of design or,
Yeah.
you
Or
know,
if you
even if
do,
it's a
why
college?
is the courses not like at least have somebody
Yeah,
qualified for the courses? That's
yeah.
definitely one
So
thing I'll say that like just Europe and the West in general, like like even at least like, when you go there, you can at least expect to not even if you don't know anything, you can at
yeah,
least like expect to learn something, which is something
yeah.
really good. Like even if you're going to bottom the uni for anything, basically, like
Mm-hmm.
you still get some experiences. But here it's like sometimes the teachers are like less qualified than you sometimes, so it's
Bro,
not it's not the best. But
bro,
I
what you say? I
definitely see
mean,
what you mean.
you just gave some heavy shots.
I mean,
Okay,
I've not
okay.
mentioned any
I
names.
mean, no lies though, but yeah, let's keep it moving.
Yeah. I mean, so anything like is there anything? So let's say you meet someone who's like a young designer, and they say, "Oh, I want to become like you, Jigga." What's your words of inspiration to them? How would you tell them how to reach the top or like just reach a nice level of performance?
I mean, first, I would say they should be better than me. Yeah,
But
I
how
feel
though?
like.
Like
I
how would they
mean,
get
I
better?
think so, and this is how I see inspirations, like people I'm probably inspired by. It's not my dream to be like them. It's to be a better version of myself, a better, which could make me be better than them. Because I feel like the
Yeah.
focus should always be about you and improvement and growth. And those people just serve as, you just look at them and like, yeah, you could do this.
Yeah, but
It's
at the
possible.
same time, at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, I get what you mean, but for me, it's
Mm,
almost like almost the opposite. Because for me, it's like if you see someone who's obviously better than you, what I
yeah,
say is you have to find out what makes them better than you,
yeah, yeah.
and
Sure, sure,
copy them until you reach that.
sure,
Then you move to the next person until
sure,
like you reach. Because you
sure.
there's
But you
always
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but you know, there are always people like feel like they want to be the next. You know, I don't know what, how the design, sorry, the motion design
Okay,
industry. And
let's
I'm sure you
say
guys have
okay,
certain
you
people at
want
the
to be
top.
the
You know,
next. People saying
yeah,
they want to be the next JP, ordinary
oh,
folk. But it's a good benchmark, to be fair.
it's a
Like,
good benchmark, but you know, it's like, nah, you could be better, you know, because
but
I feel like most times people do not really key into the amount of work that person took to get to where they are, you know, and also the fact that, you know, perhaps things have changed. So I've seen people who you know, I'm almost 7 years in design, 6, 7 years, and I've seen people with 2, 3 years, and my 2, 3 years of design then is wasn't as good as theirs currently now, because I feel like, you know, when people aspire to be more, it's really possible. You know, people should just be like, oh yeah, inspirations, and not the end goal towards like becoming what you want to become. But that said, I feel like, um if anyone was to be amazing or be great, you know, or want to excel, I feel like one thing I would always say is be curious. I feel like curiosity is what drives me, and it's something that should drive every great designer, great creative. You know, that you see things and you're like, it's you're trying to know. You know, there's a urge to want to know, like, how does this, why is this like this, how does this work, you know. So, and curiosity has always been my mantra. Like, I see, like, even the weirdest things, I can look at it and I'm like, there's a possibility I can create a typeface from it.
Mhm.
You know, the person, so you know, I don't know, I feel like there's curiosity matters. I also feel like consistency is always a
yeah,
very important thing. You know, you just have to keep doing. And it's very important to point out, because we live in a world right now where people are kind of, you know, thrown up, like just distracted with, say, fame. You know, like you see
yeah.
someone doing amazing things and you're like, oh, you need to do it, you need to
Always
get there.
getting compared.
Yeah. So I feel like if you are consistent in your journey, you know, you would definitely see the results. I feel like, and it's a matter of timing too, but consistency kind of determines how quick whatever you do would, you know, yield results. Um, I mean, maybe I would say it took longer because I was a lazy person at some point. You know, I was always starting out, I was in and out. You know, if I was not even serious with design then, you know, but over time, you know, when I decided to, like, I really need to make it in this design thing, or I need to, you know, I sat down and just try to be consistent. It's also difficult too, because you know, most people would think it's an everyday thing, but it's not really an everyday thing. You know, it's a question of like how bad you want it, and how much you're going to show up for it. You know,
Yeah,
and it should
because
be as often as possible.
yeah,
Yeah.
cause
And if there's any other thing, trust the process. Enjoy it.
trust
You
the
know.
process. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the that's the motto for at the end every statement. Because design design definitely is like
Yeah.
like probably the industry where the design can leave you so quick.
Yes.
You
Exactly.
could like you can it once something happens, like you could just your entire career could be derailed in like
Yeah.
almost instantly. So you
Yeah.
always have to make sure that if you're not being like working consistently, you have to at least like make sure that you're doing something to benefit yourself. Because like Me, for example,
Yeah.
I started out in like 2019 when I was like
Wow.
11 or 12. Then I
Oh,
reached
crazy.
so when I reached like 2021, I was
Mm.
doing it on an old laptop and my laptop broke for like a year. I
Bro,
did not.
those moments are those
Yeah,
are crazy times.
yeah, they broke for a whole year, but at the same time, like I didn't really want to, stop designing. So I literally spent that whole year just like theory. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not specifically based on motion design, 3D design theory,
Mm-hmm.
motion design
Mm-hmm.
theory,
Mm-hmm.
2D theory, composition, photography, just like because once you have the knowledge, I came back.
Yeah.
I had not touched After Effects in a year, but I came back and I just needed to basically just refamiliarize myself with After
Yeah.
Effects. And once you do that, it's like like it's much easier to create
Yeah.
because looking at me, I only probably still have like 3 years of experience as well.
Wow.
It's the same. You just
Wow.
need.
Yeah.
It's just you always need
That's
to make sure
massive.
that you're learning something basically.
I
Yeah,
also think
that's
it's very important that people enjoy creating, because there are days where, man, it's like this career, is it even worth it, and I feel like it's the passion that will drive you in those times, as I mean, a lot of us are here for the money, and who isn't, who won't love the money of
yeah.
that design brings. But I feel like there should be drive, and that drives kind of converts into excellence. Like if you enjoy what you do, you would constantly start looking for ways to improve, ways to want to design better, and also in that manner you change the world. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. But if we're about to end soon, so if you have any like last words that you not saying to anybody or like anything inspirational, you can let us know before we close up
I
the
felt
show.
I felt I said everything I needed to say
Oh,
in this moment. Is there any other thing? Yeah, I also think if I was to say any other thing, it would be kind to yourself, um, be patient. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And
that's very
everyone's
true.
journey is going to be different. It took
Trust the
me
process.
7 years. Yeah, I mean, trust process is there. It took me like 6, 7 years to get to where I am now, and it could take someone lesser. It could take someone more. So, um, it's always just important to just keep pushing, like be consistent, like trust the process. I hate saying that, but trust the process.
That's what I'll name this podcast. Just trust the process. Honestly.
you know, and always be curious. Stay curious, man. Like it's very important. Like stay curious and also love what you're doing. And surely, you would be you probably a better version of or a better version of you, a better Jigga. Who knows?
Oh, you
So
you have
yeah.
a lot of fans looking up to you. Out of all our podcast announcement tweets, yours was the most by far.
Are you serious?
Yes, like more than 5K views is the most we've had
Woo!
than anybody, and we had people
Wow,
commenting
wow.
as well. That was like the first time. But thank
Crazy.
you very much for
Yeah.
coming on the
Glad to be
podcast,
here,
Jigga.
man. Yeah,
I'm
and you're
sure a
doing a
lot
great
of
job
people will
too.
be excited to hear what you have to say.
No
But thank you all for
problem.
listening to the podcast. Next week, no, not next week. Next month, we'll have something probably very different. We're looking to go maybe more into the sports next month, but I'll probably be joined by someone else as well. But thank you very much for listening, and bye bye.